Hello adventurers and welcome back to my channel. Today we have come to very southern Arizona and we're going to go on an adventure to the Chiricahua National Monument. Now this is a place that's been on my bucket list for a bit, and so I'm really excited that we finally made it here. Immediately after the little toll booth, which no one is in, interestingly enough, there is a stop off just right inside the park, and it looks like it's a little cemetery, so I thought I'd pull off and kind of find out what it is to get some context for this area. Sure enough, it looks like it is from the Ericsons, which were some pioneer settlers. Here we learn about the Swedish immigrants Neil and Emma Ericsson. They were married in 1887 and they established a homestead not far from here. Now this is what their family looked like, and the park is actually part of the original ranch area. So they were located right along the Parks Ranch Road. Now their firstborn child was Lillian, and she was born at Fort Bowie or Fort Bowie, and they had two more children, which were Ben and Hildegrade, and they were born at the ranch house, which is on this property. The interesting thing about this is that the family, for the most part, went out into the winds to go and find their part of this world, and in doing so, only one was remaining here, and she became basically the boss of the ranch. But because she stayed behind and they established this area the way that they did, it later became Chiricahua. In fact, they were part of the founding reason why this park, this national monument, actually exists. And so here we have a small pioneer cemetery with a few graves. So this is great because we get the context immediately as soon as we come into the park. And then right up the road is the visitor center, so we can get a little bit more about the natural landscape and things like that. Always stop at the signs, always. Looks like each of these signs tell a little bit more of the story of each of the people here. And then also we have a larger sign on the top for one of the children. Now, as we go inside, there's just a few small stones, a very quaint cemetery. There's one off to the back also. It looks as though Lewis here actually served in the military as well during World War I. But back in the van and off to more adventures we go. Now, as we're pulling into the park, just beyond that first stop, there was a place called Bonita Creek, and it had a couple of different pull-offs there as well that you could check out some signs. But I need to go catch up with Riley and Tyson to see what they have found, because we were going to meet up at the visitor center, but I think that they found something else. She is. There she is. She just waited on us, it looks like. We made it to the visitor center. It was a beautiful drive-in. You could see the mountains kind of swirling around you, just inviting you in. And the further and further you get closer toward the visitor center, the more trees you start to see. So this is a heavily treed area. It is completely different than everything that we've been seeing in the more barren regions of this park. And it's just absolutely epic. I cannot wait to share this. Now, there are a few interesting things that I do know going into venturing here. The first is that there's going to be lots of historic signs because this area has tons of history. So we're looking for those. Also, we're looking for the coatimundis. I don't know if we'll see any today, but they are specific to this region. And so if we see them, they're kind of like a raccoon. That's the best way to explain it. This is kind of neat. Before we even go into the visitor center, there's a few interesting facts for us. First and foremost, how do you say Chiricahua? Chiricahua. So that's an easy way to remember it, but it gives you a few other interesting fun facts, including that Calvin Coolidge, the president of the time, in April 18th, 1924, established this as a national monument officially. Now, 86% of this park is considered to be wilderness according to this, and so there's lots and lots of interesting things that we'll find that just kind of roam. Now, there's not as many opportunities for you to camp in this region, though. I did learn that, so that's another interesting fun fact, but there's a few others that I thought were fascinating that I'll bring to your attention before we go inside. Right here it says that this monument is the 104th International Dark Sky Park, and it's certified according to an April 2021 International Dark Sky Association release. And last but not least, this visitor center right here is at about 5,400 feet of elevation. So we're slightly higher than we were when we were down in the low country. Now, even though there was a fee station, this park is free to everyone. It is one of the few in the country that you don't have to have a pass for of any kind. And so that's kind of a fun thing for you guys. So if you're ever in this area, don't let it hold you back if you don't have a national park pass or don't want to spend $20 to go into a park, because this one is free. So with that, I think there's a few other things out here that we need to go explore, but Kind of waiting on Riley. Kind of waiting on Riley. While we're waiting on Riley, you can see that there are a couple different signs in this direction. There's a 6-mile scenic tour that you can go on. It's a self-guided driving tour. And there is a campground here that is just a short distance away. This is neat because this is a CCC site also. So that means that the Civilian Conservation Corps did a lot of the stonework here. And so everything that we're seeing was at one point in time built by hard labor and those who are in the area looking for employment during a very bleak time in our country. Riley, I saw that there are some invasive species here.
There are.
Yeah, and they're birds.
They're birds. I'm sure Tyson, because birds are his mortal enemy, he would be so glad to help out and chase them off.
Yeah, but in the meantime, we're not going to feed them. They are beautiful, though. They're the Mexican jays.
Pretty.
And as we were sitting here, we saw several of them. Absolutely gorgeous. Nature is one of my favorite things. I just enjoy being out in it. I enjoy being able to see how little animals react and how they move. At the same time, again, we follow and leave no trace. We don't feed them because that makes it worse. Now, as we're going to the visitor center, of course, there's always cool stuff out here. I'll share a little bit of that, but I really want to find a patch. So Riley was noticing on this, though, that it has the full story of the monument and the people. So before we leave, we're going to get some more context for sure. Okay, we found this one, and now we're looking at others. Looks like they have stickers, lots of stickers. There's another patch that's the same. Ooh, there's one right there. That one's kind of cool.
This one's more Chiricahua.
That's really cool.
That's there.
I do like the Protect the Parks, though.
Yeah, that is really cute.
Oh my gosh, and then they have hats and cups and just about everything that you could want here, including these. Oh, they have these. We're starting off in the visitor center here with a little bit of context. They have some tree cookies, and the tree cookies, you can count the lines in and see different times in a tree's life. And so they've marked a couple in here that are significant. So if you look back, you can find that this is a ponderosa pine, and it was cut in the middle of Mormon Creek on the Coronado National Forest, which is just a little bit out from the park. When we turned in toward the entrance, if we would have turned to the right, that's Coronado. And here you can find these are fire scars that happened during different points. So that's pretty neat. You can tell about the life of it, sickness, health. And then over here, we have another piece that you can see even more life expressed through the timeline. Visitor Center is also nice because you can learn about the different animals that you might find. And here they not only have a few of those, but they also have some context behind them. So you can learn a little bit more about how they look, how they move, what they eat, and how they survive and thrive in this area. My absolute favorite is interaction. So at each park that they have interaction, I always show you a couple of these, but I encourage you guys to check them out. What animal am I? I eat seeds, nuts, acorns, and lizards. At night, I roost in trees. What do you guys think that one is? I think that one's an owl. We'll see. No, it's a wild turkey. Wow. See, I wouldn't have thought that a turkey would eat a lizard. That's why we look at the visitor center, so we can learn those things. I think that places like this are wonderful for us all. I usually just touch over a few of the things so you can kind of see what's here. I'll show you an overview of this one, and then we'll head out to the big attractions. We still have to figure out where this hiking trail is. Here we have Life at a Fly Camp, which is the CCC Corps camp, and it shows you some of the things that might have been part of that. And these drawers pull out, and you can find different artifacts from different things. This is an enrollee dress cap, and at the first, the boys were issued the World War I Army uniform, but then they created the CCC uniform right after that. Additionally, because I really enjoy diving into the history of the CCC because I've seen it at so many stops, books like these give us a true depiction of what life was like. This has several of the different photos that were taken at the time, some information about the actual camp. And so take some time to go through this. I'm going to sit here for a few minutes and look at some of these photos myself, but I'm going to start off right here with this basics. This basics shows that over 3 million men were enrolled in the CCC, and the average enrolled statistics were 18 to 19-year-olds, 147 pounds, 5'8" and a quarter, and their weight normally would fluctuate by about 11.5 pounds in the first 3 months. These camps, we learned that they were given skills that they could then use in other applications after the CCC was disbanded. Many of them went on to serve in the war using those skills. But additionally, a lot of people who came to the CCC were illiterate. They weren't able to read, and they were taught to read and write. And I think that that is a huge thing, because not only was this beneficial for them having employment during the Great Depression, but also it gave everyone the ability to step up and step into something new once they had received this training, which I think is absolutely epic and definitely something that was much needed at that time. Riley, as you're learning, I have a question for you. Are you familiar with the CCC?
Yes.
So
Sort of.
how many states do you think that the CCC were located in overall during their heyday? All of them. Would you believe all of them?
Really?
We had CCC camps not only in all of our states, but also in Puerto Rico. So do you find it wild that these just like average 18-year-old guys were building our entire country during the 40s? 18.
That's wild.
Right? So very different times. Very cool to see this. They also have a DVD video that you can sit down and watch that gives a little bit more context. Watching a little bit of the video, we learned that this was all originally formed by volcanic action that would happen, and then the nature would crush it down and break the rocks and create these weird structures that we're going to be seeing. But long before we were here, there were other people that were here. This entire wall is talking about the Chiricahua Apaches and some of the different leaders that were in this region that made the history of this place even more predominant for so many. In fact, the Chiricahua Apaches have been a semi-nomadic people for quite some time. In fact, we know that based on archaeological evidence that they arrived between 14 and 1500 to the United States, and they would move with the seasons because they were nomadic. So they would spend winter on the warmer plains of the Southwest and summer in the cooler, higher elevations in the mountains. And they lived in these little shelters that were called wickiups, and they were constructed from bear grass, yucca fibers, and other materials. Now here you can see some of those people, but to the right you might notice a couple of very familiar names: Cochise and Geronimo. Throughout time, we've heard a lot of stories of the indigenous people of this region and just might not have known that they were from this region. Geronimo is a name that almost everyone who has heard Western history has heard of. And we have traced his story through not only Oklahoma, but New Mexico into Arizona, and learned that some really tragic things happened. In fact, Geronimo here, a lot of people paint him to be this terrible person. But in all reality, if you read through the history that's actually available, you can see that a lot of the things that happened were in violation of treaties that the United States had made with the Chiricahua Apache. They said that they were vicious and violent, but in fact they were reacting to their families being massacred. I think that most people would react the same way. First and foremost, we noticed that there are no photographs that are known of Cochise, and this sculpture was based on the photograph of his son. So this more similarly resembles his son, who is said to have strongly resembled his father. Now, Cochise was one of the chiefs around the 1800s. He was a natural-born leader, and he was well known to prefer diplomacy over warfare. In the case of Cochise, he was known to be very friendly to the white settlers of the area until he was falsely accused of having done something wrong, and that turned the tides in his story. And in doing so, it turned it to a very nasty chapter in American history where most people would say that he became the bad guy. But in all reality, he did this because he was falsely accused. As for Geronimo down here, he was a military leader and a medicine man. And he was not a formal chief, but he was considered to be courageous and fearless. And that put him in the forefront of the Apache Wars. And he was one of Cochise's most devout warriors. But Geronimo was directly assisting with everything that happened. And he actually fought along in the Battle of Apache Pass. Following this, Geronimo ended up being a prisoner of war until his death, and there's a lot of chaos that went around that. If you go to various sites and you read the story of Geronimo, you'll see it's a very, very scandalous story where a lot of bad things happened. And I definitely encourage you guys to track through some of my other museum videos to learn a little bit more about that. But with that said, there's a few more things in here that I'm very curious about, including a model in the middle of the room. Remember how the first stop that we made just at the beginning of the video was about the Faraway Ranch and the family that lived there? This is a model of the ranch in the home itself. You can see inside, and you can see that these were Neil and Emma Erickson's original dwellings that they would develop their homes on. On the other side, we have a little bit more information showing us the floor plan of these, and it explains that they started out with their first job was digging the well, and they had to do this and use mud and stone to build an 80-foot well. By today's standards, that would be an easy job. They'd bring out some equipment, they'd pop it down, they'd have a well. By those standards, they were not, though. These were hand-dug wells in most cases. Took much longer. It was very hard, especially in the harder regions of sand and silt and rock. And this was all something that they would have to do in order to just sustain life. So life was not easy during that time by any means. However, that's again just the beginning. I encourage you guys to take some time and learn about everything in the visitor center, to check out some of the models that they have. We are in this area. Let's find the visitor center here. I think it's over here. There it is. So we're at the very beginning of this. If we're taking the scenic route, it goes this way and it goes all the way through the canyon here, and then it goes eventually up to the mountain tops. Now there are some other things here. All of these are trails, so we could also be hiking quite a bit in this area if we wanted to. We're only here for a day, so we're gonna pick out at least one good trail, but this is gonna be fun. Hey, we just left out of the visitor center. We have some plans. Now. Going into the visitor center is always super important because not only do you get the context from all of the information in the visitor center, but also you can find maps and talk to a ranger. And that was super important because we have learned that there's a lot of places that you can't really take a dog. And so having Riley with Tyson, it makes it a little bit more challenging to kind of pick where we want to go and how. And we wanted to make sure that Tyson could enjoy something. So there is a trail where he can be on leash. And so we're going to double back and do that one. And it's just going to be a super short trail just to kind of get some energy out, just to kind of see something interesting. Now there are supposed to be some informational signs there, so that should be kind of cool too. It was a place that we talked about going to on the way out, but now that we know that that's the only dog-friendly place, we're going to go there first. And then we're going to go up the mountain and through the scenic drive, which is about 6 miles, which will take us to the highest point that we can be on a road. And then there's one trail in that direction that Riley and I are going to do, but we learned that if she's going to leave Tyson in the vehicle, which it's perfectly fine today, it's a nice cool day, lots of breeze, she can crack the windows, but they instructed her that it'd probably be better if she also put a note in the window, just because, you know, in Arizona, apparently if you see a dog in a vehicle, you can break in to save the dog. I understand, but at the same time, oh no. So we're gonna make sure that they know, hey, we're good, we'll be back, not a big deal. He has air because he has a fan, he has water, he has the windows cracked, he's good, because again, it's a beautiful day, so it's not like it's a day that he couldn't be in there. Now, if it was super hot, that would never happen. We would just pass this activity and keep on trucking, but it is important to note that. So with that said, time to go and do a hikey poo. Okay, Riley's getting her shoes all set, and I'm gonna go ahead and start walking in this direction. This is gonna be our first stop. Now, this is a stop that Tyson can actually do, and this is the Faraway Ranch Historic District. So this is a shorter trail that takes you down to some of the ranch buildings. They're not open, but they do have some great interpretive signs to teach us a little bit more. So we're gonna start off right here at the trailhead. In this trailhead, you can take several different paths. You can go just up to the Faraway Ranch House, which is about half a mile, takes about 10 minutes, or you can go all the way 2.8 miles up to the visitor center, and there's a few other things in between, including the CCC camp and also the Stafford cabin. Now, we're not going to go all the way to the Stafford cabin today, but this is what it looks like right here. And then this is our Faraway Ranch House, which is where we're going to be going in just a few moments. Faraway Ranch Historic District is a story of prehistoric Chiricahua Apache people as well as Spanish people, but additionally holds the stories of buffalo soldiers, ranchers, dudes, and the Civilian Conservation Corps, which have all called the canyon home. The Faraway Ranch began in 1886 as the homestead of Neil and Emma Erickson, and by the 1920s it had become a guest ranch for visitors who came to explore the scenic canyons of the Chiricahua Mountains. Today the district is preserved as a part of the Chiricahua National Monument, and you can check in the visitor center for ranch house tour times. Now, the interesting thing about the single-family homestead is that the Faraway Ranch was actually the home of the Swedish immigrants, Neil and Emma, and their children, and you can find a short walk that will take you beyond the barn that takes you over to the home. You can find some of the historic photos from the public guest ranch as well as the single-family homestead right here on the kiosk to the opening of the trail. Okay, so as we're exploring all of the different pieces of the property, some of these buildings you can see inside. Check out that hayloft up there. As we're moving around, there's also what looks like a stable maybe. They have an arena beside this where they would run the cattle through so that they could tag them, do their meds, do all the things. And then in this back room over here, I'm not sure what exactly is in here. Looks like there's a bunch of tins so they can do some repairs if they need to. Pretty neat. Pretty neat to see the old structures. This is just one of the outbuildings though. They have several outbuildings on your way toward the main house. This is neat. This one's different than the rest. This one's made out of stone. Looks like it has adobe on the walls. It does protect the electrical And at one point in time, this had something else in here. Not sure, but it's definitely a different kind of structure. Are you ready for the big house?
Let's go to the big house.
It's just behind me.
What?
Do you see it?
I do.
Woo! And there it is. Just before we go over to the actual homestead, which is right here, there's another sign about the Erickson homestead. Talks a little bit more about Neil and Emma and how that their daughter called the homestead Faraway Ranch because it was so god-awful far away from everything. So Faraway Ranch as opposed to Faraway Ranch. Going through this today, would you say it is Faraway or Faraway? That's the question. The nice thing about this is now we have more context as to how they would have said it. So even if all these years later we call it the Faraway, we know that one daughter, she was pretty right. This place is far away from everything. Outdoor bath, sure. This little area where they do ranger talks, don't mind if I do. I'm gonna have a seat on these. These are recycled from items that they collect in park most of the time. So that's pretty cool. Riley, dinner served, dinner served. This is kind of neat that this is here. This would have been possibly how they called all of the people in to eat at night. That's pretty neat. Recently, this property is placed on the National Registry of Historic Places, and you can come here and get a really good glimpse at something absolutely incredible. When you come to Southern Arizona, a lot of times you expect cacti, dustiness, but this is abundant with trees. They had livestock. So many incredible things happened here. The ledges and the seals have these unique stones that have been found from around the area. The walls of this structure are like an adobe, and so they're much more able to survive through the harsh elements of the heat as well as the cold that hits in these mountains. Wow, when we got to this part, there's a screened in back porch area. Again, everything's locked up unless you take one of the tours, but inside you can see what it might have looked like, including this ice box that's been left open. This is one of the older ice boxes, so by leaving this open, they're protecting people from getting inside and getting stuck in there. It looks as though there are nice ramps throughout here to make it a little bit more accessible, and I am not positive, but that looks like a swimming pool over there. Did they at one point have a swimming pool? Is that what this is? Oh my goodness. It literally looks like a swimming pool, guys. You can see where the chimney would have come up, and there's the stovepipe up there. And then as we get a little bit closer in here, I'm trying to see if we can see anything inside this door. Looks like they have a setup in there for the tour, but not much otherwise. And I don't know if you guys can see this very well, but over here there's a plaque of some kind, so we're gonna go check out that too. There is a tree that has been planted in this section in memory of Paul Braxton Fugate. He was born in 1938 and passed away in 1980. I'm assuming it was here, but probably something happened. Again, this is not a small home. It's 2 main floors, and it looks like it has an attic that has some access as well. I can see at least 4 fireplaces from this side. They have retroed this now where it has heating and air. I can hear it when I go up to the house, but I'm not sure when that was converted. If it was after it was Chiricahua, or if it was when someone was still living in the home. Now, as though this is not incredible enough, there's more history to this, of course. We love history and brain wrinkles here on the channel, so when we get to dive in, you should. The signs that are around have kind of been echoing the sentiments of the same story that tell you a little bit more about the Erickson family. But one of the things that we learned at the first stop, as well as this stop, is the introduction of Ed Riggs and his instrumental nature in changing the mode of what this was. Not only did he help with securing this as a national monument, but he also was pivotal in making sure that they had access to various points. Now, I can only assume that some of those points are places that the family had loved and enjoyed before, and so they wanted to share them with us. Now, as we read at the visitor center, a lot of this property is wilderness. So getting through that wilderness and going to these very specific special places, that's something that only having the advanced knowledge would have gotten us. And because of Ed and the rest of the family, we now are able to explore. Now, is this going to be something that everyone can do? I would like to say yes, this has been a pretty flat trail out here. Now, I will say if you have an accessibility vehicle or anything, it is not on a paved trail. It's still a little bit up and down. However, it's a very smooth sailing up to the point of the ranch itself. So you could probably get out here and stretch your legs and have a good time and just take your time with it. There's tons of great signs to learn from. The property itself is incredible. Before we make it back to the main parking area at the trailhead to move on to our next location, you can come over to where the guest ranch area is. You can see into a few of the windows here. One of my favorite things, the pressings on the concrete of the horseshoes. Very cool. Again, none of these are open at this time, but you can come whenever they are showing them. But it's really neat to be able to just like pop in and look and see what's available. Now, the siding on this particular structure looks a little worse for wear. There's a few pots in it. It looks like it has that roll-on roofing. But again, it's just about getting out and stretching your legs, seeing something different, and kind of observing the history through your own eyes as you kind of take a trip around and read the signs and then see a building and then learn a little bit more about it. And so that is what has already made this park so incredible. I told you guys there was a ton of history here. We've already learned about the Chiricahua Apaches. We've already learned about the family who was here. And now we get to learn about the nature. So we're gonna head on down the scenic trail, I think, in just a few minutes to kind of go on our scenic drive and see what we can find next. Okay, we are off to the Bonita Creek trail, which is the one that we passed as we came in that we said we were gonna come back to. That one's dog friendly, so we're gonna do another dog friendly trail and just kind of see what's there. I love doing all these little mini trails because we learn so much, but also because we get to see different views of the park. Now, whenever we go up to our main trail, which is gonna be up higher in elevation, it's gonna be a completely different view. And I think I'm gonna show you that one on tomorrow's video because it's a little bit more in depth. And I really wanna highlight that one so that if you guys are coming out, you can see it and see all the different like fun things and the beauty. So check out tomorrow's video for that one. But now we're gonna do the Bonita Creek. Hey, here we are. We made it. And it's actually quite nice in the sun, so I might end up losing this layer, but I'm gonna keep it on for now because when the breeze hits, it's chilly still. But around this one, there's a few interpretive signs that we can find that'll tell us a little bit different story. I'm not exactly sure what this story is gonna look like, but this one is also dog friendly, and it looks like it might be ADA friendly as well. I'm gonna see if it continues the way that it starts out, but right now, this is awesome. We get our first sign on this trail, we get to learn about the different life zones that they have. So there's 7 altogether here, and because of the different types of elevation and also the plant life that are shown here that tell us about all of these different plants in this area, this is how different kinds of animals are able to not only survive but thrive in this region. And so as we see, the lower areas would be like drier and more flat, and then you get into higher elevation and then higher elevation, and within that you start to see different kinds of forests start to pop up as the elevation changes. This is very neat and something definitely that we wouldn't have seen anywhere else except for here and in the visitor center. Okay, it looks like if we continue going in this direction, we continue on the ADA friendly trail, or we can go in this direction to see a little bit different view. Now this one is not going to be ADA whatsoever. There's some large rocks. There's a lot of overgrown areas, but if you wanted to, this is a good place to go. Riley's spinning around trying to get Tyson unhooked, but what do you think? Do you want to continue on the ADA trail, or do you want to take a little look in this direction to see what's going on?
Well, I mean, that's to the Faraway Ranch, right?
It kind of looks like it goes down to something, though, at the end. Do we want to walk over here just to see what's there?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, let's see what's there, and if there's nothing there, we'll just get back on this trail.
Absolutely.
Okay, in this direction, it looks like it's normally where the creek would flow if there was water, but there's no water right now. And so it's a dry creek. And in this direction, you could walk all the way back to the Faraway Ranch. So since there wasn't any water, we're going back toward the ADA trail, and Tyson is disgruntled because he does not like this harness. He was doing so well with the other one, but this is a better walking harness for him. So yeah, he's just gonna have to keep moving around. Now we just finished up with the trail and got back to this sign, which is the Birds of Chiricahua. And while we're doing that, Riley is actually going to take a second lap just for Tyson so he can have some exercise. But as we're here, we learn about the birds. Throughout the entirety of the park, we've been seeing all of these little birds fluttering around. And now we can see which ones that they are in a little bit more depth. Of course, there is the sign in the visitor center, but whenever you're coming in, if you stop here first, you can get an idea of the park even before you've adventured toward the visitor center. Places like this are incredible because they allow you to get out and stretch. Again, ADA friendly on this entire trail, so that means that you guys, no matter what your abilities are, could come here and enjoy this park. And I definitely encourage you to do so. It is absolutely wonderful to see the change in elevation and also the change in vegetation as you're coming up toward this. My gosh, there's snow on the sides of the mountains. That is insane. It's only in the shady parts, but wow. Okay, we made it to Massai Point, which is at 6,800 feet. And we're gonna go park and see what this looks like. This is a viewpoint. Now the nice thing about this is not only is it an overlook, but there's a few buildings here as well, like a nature trail and some exhibit buildings. So I'm not sure what we're gonna find, but I thought this was a good way for us to wrap up our trip to the park today. And again, if you're interested in that other trail, go check out tomorrow's video. But oh my goodness, this is such a user-friendly way to see the park. We took 2 easy trails this morning. We're taking another short trail up here. We're getting views from every direction, and the drive up was so incredible. Again, there's no way we're going to be able to do everything today because there's just so many trails, but we're picking and choosing the ones that I think would be a little bit easier for you all so that you can come out and see them and feel confident coming to places like this. National parks, national monuments, they're all for all of us. You don't have to be an expert to come to them. They give you so many resources to work with so that you can just come and genuinely have an experience to remember and take home memories with you. There are a few signs out here that are going to help us out a little bit. So let's dive into some history, some views, some science, and have a little bit of a discovery time on our adventure path with this last one. Yeah, there's also snow up here too. So we're gonna be really careful on our way down because there were a couple patches that were on the road and oh my goodness. So we have here a sign that shows the actual trailhead, and we can go up here to the nature trail with exhibits area. And then from there, there's a few other things that we could get to. They do have a few hikes that leave out of this area, from the short to the long and everything in between. And then there's also some information here about the point and the grand vistas and how that they tell the story of human history as well as 4 different ecosystems. Let's start off on this uneven portion that takes us down to a few viewpoints. I would definitely suggest good shoes because through this section, it's kind of rugged. We're going to climb up just a little bit so we can get a better view. This should be good. Right here we find out that there are columns, pinnacles, and balanced rocks in this area, and they have these things that are called joints between them. You can see what each one looks like. Columns are straightforward, but they're kind of attached to each other. A balanced rock is whenever everything is kind of withered away and there's just this big chunk on the top, and a pinnacle is a straight up and down singular column-like structure, but it's all by itself and isolated, so it's called a pinnacle. This was originally created by volcanoes that would push up, and then they would be weathered away. So what still stands here is still volcanic activity. And so it's really neat to be able to see how this entire valley has all of these little structures that just jut up. It's pretty impressive, to say the least. Riley's moving and putting Tyson up so that we can go down this little space here, and then we have one more stop at the top. This is going to be incredible. I'm trying to get down to this viewpoint area, and there's steps all through here. Riley's still up at the top. We're just trying to see if we can find the best view, and the sun is so intense today, but I want to show you guys how incredible this is. It's hard to translate it onto camera, but wow. I don't know how I've never been here before. I know that this is probably one of the best things that we could have done today because it's so incredible. Now with that, it's not even like at all on this stairway. And I always get myself into stairs, which means I have to go back up the stairs. But it's okay. It's okay. It's going to be absolutely beautiful. And I think I see the viewpoint just down below us. Do it, friend. You can do it.
Just trying to make sure I don't trip.
Don't trip, and then going back up, it's gonna be interesting.
Otherwise it's gonna be a face plant.
Yeah, let's not do that. Let's not do that. We made it out to this like soft area where you can see all of the beauty. It's kind of darker to you guys, but absolutely incredible. But over there is the actual viewpoint. So we're trying to get over there. Let's go down here, guys. This is where it gets a little hairy. Okay, all good. All good in the hood. Haley, are you struggle bussing? Yep. Don't fall off the mountain.
No, I'm doing all right. Doing all right.
Riley's about to fall off the mountain.
No, I'm not.
Almost there. We're almost there. I just want to get out to this beautiful peak so we can see 360 views along the way. Also, there's this interpretive sign. This is one in a series, and it says, at the time of the great eruptions, the Chiricahua Mountains had not even been formed. So 10 to 15 million years ago, tensions started the movement, which formed all of what is now in front of us. Now for this one, I'm definitely going to be holding on. There are some places here that are like little step downs, but at the same time, these rocks are not the most even. So we're going to be very careful, very mindful, very demure.
What is happening?
There's a big drop off in between where my legs are.
Oh.
To here, because it's kind of slippery. Be careful and hold on.
You got this. You got this.
Trails? No.
I have hand sanitizer.
Thank goodness.
That's good. Woohoo!
We made it! And look at this. It's incredible. This view is so awesome. Okay, we found this thing whenever we got out to the crazy structure. And it's pretty neat because with this, it actually pivots to these different crevices, and then they're all cut in these different zones. So you can see none of them are the same. And because of that, as we're moving it, you get to see different viewpoints. So if I were to be in this one right here, for example, I could look off in this direction. And this is the rounded peak in the distance, and it's Mica Mountain, and it's part of the Saguaro National Monument, which is pretty neat. So I could look through here. Oh, it just kind of isolates it so you can see it better. That's really neat.
Ha! We're on top of the world! Yeah! I don't want to fall over.
Please don't. Oh, the valley's beautiful. Taking a break. There's also another sign here that talks about the canyon forest, and it says that you can see the large trees in the canyon below us on the opposite side slopes, and weathering and erosion have produced a mosaic of different kinds of habitats there, which is what we learned about at our last trail. Okay, down we go and back toward the trailhead. We get to go and traverse the crazy crag again, which shouldn't be that bad, but for some reason it was struggle bus city for us. That's okay. Guys, we have returned from the overlook, and it was absolutely epic. I am so excited about this park. This was such a cool endeavor today. Lots of neat things. Definitely lots of neat things. Whew. But now it's time for us to wrap this one up. I've had so much fun. Remember, guys, we're not here for a long time, but we are here for a good time. Visit Chiricahua if you get a chance. You won't regret it. Also, check out tomorrow's video because we're about to go hike it out a little bit more. Till next time. Bye.